On, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sloppy Saturdays. And today we have a very special episode for you guys. We are talking about a former Heisman Trophy winner that is going to absolutely break out in the NFL. And if you guys haven't guessed it already, we are talking about Caleb Williams. Now, we're going to talk about Caleb Williams' journey throughout college that led him to be the number one overall pick. We're going to talk about what did not work out for him in year one and why it did it. And then we're going to talk about why he's absolutely going to soar in year two. Let's get right into it. So when we were first introduced to Caleb Williams, it was when he was taking over for Spencer Rattler. Now, Spencer Rattler was a very highly touted prospect in college, but he wasn't living up to the hype. Caleb Williams comes in mid-game and comes back and absolutely tears it up. He starts out for the rest of the year for Oklahoma as a true freshman. Then after that, Lincoln Riley leaves to go to USC. It was a big question if Caleb Williams was going to follow him. Initially, he said he was mad at Lincoln Riley for going to USC. We know a lot of people out of high school sometimes commit to the coach over the program. A lot of times you really are committing to that coach. Caleb Williams was one of those guys. He ultimately follows Lincoln Riley to USC. In his first year, he wins the Heisman Trophy and absolutely tears it up. And the second year, he has a great season statistically as well. Now, this USC team, it didn't really lead to much from a team aspect. They never won the Pac-12. They never won a huge bowl game. They did win the Holiday Bowl, didn't win the Cotton Bowl. Again, I think that was a lot because of the defense. Lincoln Riley, not really known to build up a defense. And I think for Caleb Williams, he was really playing shootout games in his college career. Ultimately, it did lead him to succeed his ultimate goal as being the number one overall pick. Last year, going into the year, a lot of people were super high on the Chicago Bears team with what they were able to do on this offense. They did bring in some veterans. When you look at DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, they had DJ Moore there. They used a first-round pick on Rome Odunze as well, the wide receiver out of Washington, to help Caleb Williams. So his offense definitely did have some pieces, but this offensive line was not able to succeed. And I think that's ultimately what got their coach fired. Now, I believe there was a key turning point in the season last year. When you look at the Bears, they were 5-2 at one point, which sounds crazy as they did string off a lot of losses in a row in the middle of the season. But they were 5-2 going into the Washington game. Now, that Washington game, if everybody doesn't know, it wasn't Caleb Williams' best games by any means, but they did lose on a last-second Hail Mary. Again, it was complete luck. The ball got tipped in the air, player in the back of the end zone. Washington wins that game. If the Bears win that game, they're 6-2. It was just a downward spiral after that. Like I said, coach got fired. The main reason why I think Caleb Williams did not succeed in year one, when you look at his statistics, 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Again, not an awful season, a pretty mediocre year one season. The main reason why I think he didn't succeed, it's largely due to his play style and the offensive line put in place. For Caleb Williams, he plays a slower game. When you look at him, he's trying to extend every play. He's sitting back in the pocket for a while, and he's extending every play looking up. Why I think he was overshadowed by Jaden Daniels in year one. Jaden Daniels plays more of a complementary game for a bad offensive line. When you look at Jaden Daniels, his ability to rush the football and how he looks to do it so often, that takes pressure off a bad offensive line. When you're sitting back like Caleb Williams does, looking with your eyes up to extend every play, you got to have a sufficient offensive line to really complement that play style. He didn't. He had one of the worst offensive lines in the league. You could argue the worst offensive line. Again, Patriots offensive line was pretty bad as well. But again, I just think his play style, playing a slower type game in the NFL, you need the surroundings, the supporting cast to do that. And again, it wasn't all the offensive line's fault. Caleb Williams obviously hold on to a ball for a while as well, which he's going to have to work on taking the short things. When you look at air yards in the NFL and who took the most short plays, Caleb Williams was the least in the NFL. So he's definitely going to have to work on taking what the defense giving him a little more. When we look at him extending plays and compare him to people like Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, we've seen those guys even in the beginning of their career try to extend plays more than they do now. They take what the defense gives them. So Caleb Williams is going to have to learn from that as well. But now when you look into year two and what this Bears team did on this offensive line, they completely bolstered it. They pick up 3 people. Obviously, Joe Thuney, a veteran. He's had a ton of success. They get him. They get Jonah Jackson as well and Drew Dolman. Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson via trade. Drew Dolman, they get him. They sign him. 3 guys to bolster this offensive line. They show that they're going all in with Caleb Williams. Not only that, let's look at the offense and the investment they made in this offense. When you look, we said Rome Odunze got picked in the first round. So they paired him up with a receiver, a guy that he could grow with. Rome Odunze, I absolutely love. If anybody doesn't know me, one of my favorite players in college football in recent memory. Rome Odunze, a guy that could beat you out in all 3 levels, an outstanding route run. He also has size to him as well. I believe there's nothing really Rome Odunze can't do, and he's going to eventually turn into a wide receiver 1. I think he's going to be the leading receiver in this offense. Even with a veteran like DJ Moore there, I think Rome Odunze is going to take off with Caleb Williams. Then you look at this year, they invest a first-round pick again in a tight end in Colston Loveland. A lot of people didn't like that pick. A lot of people think it should have been Tyler Warren. People thought that they were going to take Ashton Jetty as well. He never actually made it to them, but they helped Caleb Williams again, going with Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland, a guy that I think is super underrated. When we look at him at Michigan, Michigan was a run-first offense. We didn't really see the most we could have seen as a catcher in Colston Loveland, but Colston Loveland shows the ability to block, which would help in this offense, and he's a traditional tight end. I like how he catches at the pinpoint and also how he has ability to make yards after the catch as well. I think he's a can't-miss guy to go along with Caleb Williams. And they also use a second-round pick in Luther Burden as well. I think with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, some traditional receivers, great route runners, I think Luther Burden brings a different style of receiving to this offense. Reminds me a lot of a Deebo Samuel, a guy with a lot of burst and a guy that's very aggressive that you could run at a bunch of different spots on the field and run a bunch of different ways. Ben Johnson is going to have to be creative with him. They don't really do much in the running back room. They had Kyle Monogany out of Rutgers, who I actually do like as a downhill runner, but I don't know how much he's going to contribute in year 1. It's going to be DeAndre Swift and maybe even Roshan Johnson, a guy that had a pretty weird career when we look at him being behind Bijan Robinson at Texas. Him coming in, never really broke out yet, but maybe they get something out of him as a second running back. Now, when we go into Ben Johnson being the coach of this team, I love Ben Johnson and what he was able to do in Detroit. I just don't know I'm as sold as him as everybody else is. Now, we know the NFL is going to young creative play calls, and Ben Johnson definitely is that when we saw him in Detroit. The problem is a lot of people try to take a team that had a ton of success, a coordinator from that team, and think they're going to have that immediate success. Now, I think Ben Johnson definitely went to the best place in this coaching cycle. When you look at Caleb Williams, obviously we're projecting him to be an elite quarterback. And when you look at the Bears roster, they aren't as far away as everybody thinks they are. As we are, we're highlighting their moves. We're highlighting them to take a big jump with Caleb Williams. So, again, I think when Ben Johnson was looking out in his coaching cycle, there obviously wasn't any contenders that needed a coach as rarely as that is for the NFL. So you're looking at a team with a future. This team definitely has that future, and I think he chooses the best spot for him. Why I'm not sold on him, when you look at Detroit, they had so many people with big play abilities. When you look at Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs, these are probably the 2 biggest guys with big play ability in the NFL. Then you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, arguably a top 5 receiver. Sam Laporta, a top tight end. David Montgomery, another great running back to go along with it. A great offensive line. Jared Goff. This offense was absolutely loaded. And I think Brent Johnson is going to be a great offensive mind and a great coach. I just don't know if he's going to be this top coach in year 1 that everybody thinks he's going to be. I hope he is for Caleb Williams. I think it was a very good hire. But again, a lot of people are getting their expectations too high. Like I said, when you take a coordinator off a great team, a lot of people expect that immediate success and that coach to turn it around. I think that's a lot of pressure. But again, I think Caleb Williams has people that he could definitely grow with. When you look at Rome Odunze, that could be his top receiver for a while. When you look at Ben Johnson, a young coach, he could grow with him. And this offensive line is going to be perfect for Caleb Williams as well. Now, for a successful season for Caleb Williams, it is going to be tough to map out. When you look at his division, you could argue his division is the toughest in football. When you look at the Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, Green Bay Packers, all teams that are playoff teams. Now, luckily for Caleb Williams and the Bears, I think a lot of the teams in this division definitely lost a lot. When you look at Detroit, they lost pieces on the offensive line. They lost two of their coordinators. Those are going to be big things for Detroit. We'll see how they recoup from that. Again, I still expect them to be the best team in this division. When you look at Minnesota, they're going with a whole nother quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, a quarterback who hasn't played a game. I do think he's going to succeed. I do think they have the pieces for him. I love Kevin O'Connell as well. But again, a lot of question marks for Minnesota. And the Packers, again, they didn't really gain or lose that much this offseason. So they're going to be that stagnant in this division as well. But the Bears are definitely a team that's going to improve the most out of this division. When you look at, like I said, all the moves they made, their offensive line, the weapons they have, and Caleb Williams taking his jump. I expect, like I said, Caleb Williams to take a massive jump in year two. They finally got the offensive line pieces right for him. They add a coach in Ben Johnson that he's going to be able to grow with. The young weapons on his offense that they invested with. And just Caleb Williams' pure talent. When we look at him, I still have faith that he could be the best quarterback in this draft class. I know that's a hot take with Jayden Daniels. When you look at Jayden Daniels, we're looking at possibly the best rookie season we have ever seen. But Caleb Williams, I like his ability a lot more to throw the football. And then we look at him extending plays as well, his physical attributes. This guy is everything you want in a modern-day quarterback. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays. Expect Caleb Williams to absolutely break out. Now, Caleb Williams in this tough division, he doesn't have to make the playoffs, I think, for this Bears season to be a success. I just think he has to show that he is this franchise's quarterback, and I think he has to make a lot of these young weapons on his offense constantly improve as well. That would be a successful season for the Bears. If they go 9-8, miss out on the playoffs, but Caleb Williams is the guy, that's a success. If they could make the playoffs, which I expect them to do, even though it is a tough division, that's the ultimate success. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays, and we are out.